Thank you for having me. We've spent a lot of time at VR conferences. We're talking about a lot of activity above ground, virtual worlds, buildings, what have you. The most dangerous profession in the world today is underwater welding. So if we're looking to make an impact, it won't be a huge number of people, but working underwater is a critical part of the modern world. A little bit before I want to tell you a little about Booz Allen. Booz Allen is a 100-year-old consulting firm. We are investing pretty heavily in augmented and virtual reality, specifically for the government, healthcare, and industry. Number of different applications, but we're really getting our heads around visualizing 3D data sets in 3D, the way and how we can apply data science to augmented and virtual reality. So let's look at Deepwater Horizon. Sure, we all remember this. Horrible catastrophe for the environment, for BP, for the country, and other countries around the Gulf. The technology we were using at that point, we had ROVs, remotely operated vehicles. We had a lot of sensors, sonar, all sorts of technology that was being applied to this problem. What we didn't have was a way to visualize that in one common interface. Technology now allows us to do that. So this is kind of the impetus for how we got started on developing a product we call OceanLens, with the goal of providing sight to the undersea community. Now what we've done, and this is kind of a reverse augmented reality, where we've built a virtual world, taking open source data sets with NASA, NOAA, to create this world model. Map it all out. There's different levels of granularity depending on what kind of data is available. And efficient streaming so that you only are looking at what is relevant for your perspective. It's an inside-out perspective at that time, and you get the right level of granularity at the time. Then we overlaid additional data sets. Now we're looking at ways, once you have that base mesh of the subsurface, or actually above ground and below sea texture, you could add a number of other data sets there, nautical charts, for above ground 3D buildings, AIS, ship tracking information, underwater video, underwater sonar to get greater definition, and really let you get into planning activities that you might have to do underwater before you ever get wet. Now, let's start with the Navy. Now, clearly, you have to move a vessel from one place to another. Being able to visualize that data space, being able to visualize at least the latest data you have around that is very important. And that's kind of a macro level perspective. But let's get into the details of the original impetus for this, and that is working close in. Now you could take 3D models, you can overlay detailed georeference CAD models underwater, and actually programmatically apply actions to that. Overlaying the sonar to provide vision up close in real time. And also, if the water is clear enough, apply a video overlay on top of that, same georeferenced structure. A as-is and a to-be model, and ought to actually reduce the amount of time that we have people underwater in harm's way. Augmented presence, another if we could ship that vision that's developed away from actually sending people underwater where they can work above ground. Lot needs to be worked on that, communications platforms, really mapping that overlay down to that precision that you need for construction. But this can greatly help taking a lot of the technology that I've heard about today around above ground construction and applying it in underwater domain. And lastly, improve safety in oil and gas, where we all started. how can we, we're talking about pylons in traffic construction, bridges, et cetera. But can you take that down 400 feet a mile under the ocean in deep water scenarios where you actually have absolutely no visibility, and augment the senses of the ROV to be able to put that back together into a way of visualizing the underwater environment? We're working on this. We're kind of at phase 1 right now. Looking at, we built that map. We're now overlaying a number of different data sources on top of that, and rolling that out in a number of different venues. But really, part of the point of this talk was to look at how we can take what's currently thought, and I'm talking about the industrial world, training, gameplay. That's kind of where we are right now. But take that into data science. Think about how we can take that data and work with it, and to eventually pioneer the way for operational AR/VR. This is the Iron Man suit. This is the augmented reality and context-relevant data brought to your face as you're looking for it. But before we get to that, and you've probably heard this a number of different talks throughout the day, AI comes before AR. Data science is a key part of that. And being able to really work with 3D data sets in 3D paves the way to be able to do everything else. And with that, I'll open up to questions. I left this pretty high level because I figured there'd be a good amount of questions from the audience.
What's being done to facilitate the collection of data? Because my understanding is maybe about 5% of the seabed has actually been mapped. We know more about outer space than we actually do what's happening on Earth and our seas. Never mind what's happening between the surface of the water and the seabed. So what type of things are being done to collect that data and help you guys?
So, popular statement that 5 to 10% of the, we have actually, to a certain degree, it depends on what level of granularity you're talking about. As I mentioned, NASA and NOAA have put out a database, a World One database, which has roughly, I think it's 100 feet, 30 meters level of the ocean floor mapped. There are gaps in that, but that's all public data. Every construction site before they work underwater, they're going to do a detailed sonar mapping on top of that. So, and then other agencies are doing other work and getting more detailed maps of underwater terrain. So there are a lot of gaps in that data once you get to a certain level of granularity. But we do have, at a rough level, the entire Earth's surface mapped.
We have plenty of time for questions. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there operations that, for example, in the oil and gas industry, could benefit of being somehow monitored real time? I don't know, from a ship integrating all the data?
Yes. I would say looking at, there's all sorts of, think of a buoy, right? A harbor scenario. Ship traffic comes in and out. We have buoys above ground, on the surface, that monitor when ships are coming in and out of port. Can we do that undersea as well? Would there be a benefit to that, particularly with unmanned systems and the rise? From a security perspective, clearly there would be. A surface ship is much a threat as underwater ship is a bigger threat than a surface ship. So the ability to sense, but then visualizing that into a common operating picture that you can actually, harbor security can actually take action on, a great use case. Pipeline production, pipeline and cable. The internet is built on pipes that run underwater. And again, from a security perspective and from an economic perspective, monitoring those and mapping those and being able to visualize the impact of dragging your anchor, and that might have on undersea cables is part of critical infrastructure for most countries. Yes.
Participated at all in any of these designs for underwater cities?
No. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Yes, it'd be interesting to talk more.
So climate change, the poles are going to melt.
We can visualize that too. It's not great. I guess I said that very flippantly, but looking at being able to model the change in sea level can help with planning. And again, once you have that data, you can, and a lot of people have already mapped, shown the effect of sea level rise in virtual reality. But once you add the ability to add ocean currents, again, data that's available, and project what impact that might have in terms of hurricanes or floods in general, can greatly help further planning. So again, the idea here is how do we take it from a training or entertainment technology towards a planning tool. All right.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.